He walked into the auto shop wearing filthy clothes, asking if he could fix a car in exchange for a meal. The mechanics laughed. They called him a lunatic until he laid his hands on the engine and proved them all wrong. The sun was a merciless hammer as Ronnie approached Premium Motors. The asphalt was hot enough to melt the worn-out rubber of his old sandals. His clothes were grimy and torn, his hair matted with the telltale signs of someone who slept rough. But his eyes, though tired, held a strange light, a fire that no one there could comprehend. At that moment, Rick was hunched over the engine of a gleaming silver Mercedes, wiping sweat from his brow and muttering curses. Two other mechanics, Nate and Rob, stood beside him, watching and offering useless suggestions. The car's owner, Theresa, leaned against the wall, arms crossed, her expression a tight mask of anxiety trying to pass for calm. "I can't believe this," she said softly, running a hand through her hair. "I need this car running. Today." Rick straightened up, using the back of his hand to wipe away more sweat. "I'm doing everything I can, Mrs. Clark. I've never seen anything like it." The engine turns over, but it gives no power. "Everything?" Theresa asked, her voice tight with thinly veiled panic. "Everything we know," Nate answered, shaking his head. "We've changed the spark plugs, the filters, even cleaned the injectors. Nothing." That's when Ronnie stepped in. He moved slowly, quietly across the garage floor, the soft scuff of his sandals barely audible. The three mechanics stopped, their expressions a mix of surprise and discomfort. Theresa frowned but said nothing. "Excuse me," Ronnie said, his voice raspy but polite. "Mind if I take a look?" Rick let out a short, incredulous laugh. "A look? What do you know about it?" "A little," Ronnie replied simply, which made Rob snort. "A little? Buddy, this is a Mercedes, not some rust bucket from a junkyard." "I know," Ronnie said peacefully. "It's a C300 2-liter turbo engine. I heard it when it was towed in. The problem isn't what you think it is." Nate looked at Rick in disbelief, as if to say, "We've got a homeless guy claiming to be a luxury car expert." Theresa shifted, uneasy. Something about Ronnie's quiet confidence was intriguing, as if he knew something they truly didn't. "Listen," Rick said, wiping his greasy hands on a rag. "I don't know who you are, but this is a professional garage. We don't need any help from people like..." "People like me?" Ronnie finished, without a hint of anger. "That's not what I meant," Rick said quickly, flustered. "But it is," Ronnie returned, his calm unshakable. Rob made no effort to hide his disdain. "Man, what you need is a hot shower, not a Mercedes engine." "Gentlemen, please," Theresa interjected, stepping forward slightly. "Don't you worry, Mrs. Clark," Nate said. "We'll figure this out. We just need more time." While they talked, Ronnie's gaze was fixed on the open engine bay. His eyes moved methodically, scanning every component as if he were reading a book. No one else seemed to notice. "Can I try something?" he asked again. "Just a theory I want to test." "Kyle." "What theory?" Rick demanded, his curiosity now warring with his pride. "The problem is in the ECU," Ronnie explained. "The electronic control unit. It's not a mechanical fault, which is why you can't find it." Rob pulled out his phone and started recording. "You guys gotta see this. The street philosopher is now an electronics wizard." "Rob, stop it," Theresa said sharply, but he kept filming. "This is gold," Rob chuckled. "Homeless guy schools certified mechanics on premium cars. This is going viral." Ronnie was unfazed. He'd heard far worse in his life. "If you let me, I can have this fixed in minutes," he said peacefully. "And what do you want in return?" Rick asked, his tone mocking. $100? A sandwich?" Ronnie answered. "Anything to eat, really. I'm just hungry." The garage fell silent. Rob almost dropped his phone from laughing so hard. "A sandwich? Are you serious?" "I am," Ronnie said, his voice firm. "And I promise you, I can fix the problem you've been struggling with all day." Rick looked at Theresa, who was staring intently at Ronnie, as if trying to peer into his very soul. She took a step closer, looking him directly in the eye. "Do you really know what you're doing?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," Ronnie replied. "How do you know the problem is the electronic control unit?" Theresa pressed. Ronnie pointed towards the engine. "From the sound," he said, "there's a specific stutter when the camshaft position sensor sends a faulty signal to the ECU. The system automatically cuts fuel injection to protect the engine. It's in limp mode." Theresa turned to Rick. "Did you check that?" "We checked everything," Rick said, his confidence clearly fading. Ronnie shook his head. "No, you didn't. You were looking for a mechanical problem. But this is a modern car. It runs on electronics. When a sensor fails, the system limits performance to prevent catastrophic damage." Rob was still recording, a smirk on his face. "This is great. A street professor teaching mechanics their own trade." "Rob, that's enough," Theresa commanded. "Come on, Mrs. Clark. This is comedy gold," Rob replied. Rick stepped closer to Ronnie. "Let's say you're right. What would you do to fix it?" "I'd connect a diagnostic scanner to the ECU, reset the system, and recalibrate the sensor settings." End of. Nate's brow furrowed. "We don't have a scanner that advanced here." "I know," Ronnie nodded. "But the shop next door does. I can borrow it. The owner knows me." Rick and Rob exchanged a cynical look. "Sure, he does." But Theresa ignored them, her eyes fixed on Ronnie. There was something in the way. He spoke calm, clear, without a hint of bluffing. His confidence was quiet, but felt genuine. "What if you're wrong?" Theresa asked. "If I'm wrong," Ronnie answered, "you owe me nothing. I won't even ask for the sandwich." "And if you're right?" "A sandwich. That's all I'm asking." Rick grunted. "Fine. But if you fail, you leave and never bother us again." "Deal," Ronnie said with a nod. Rob continued to film. "This is gonna be legendary." The homeless man who tamed a Mercedes. Ronnie walked out of the garage and into the one next door, a much simpler, more basic operation than Premium Motors. An older man was working alone. He greeted Ronnie warmly and returned moments later with a sophisticated scanner. Rick's eyes widened. "Where did you get that?" "Mr. Frank lent it to me," Ronnie said, plugging it into the car's diagnostic port. Theresa didn't take her eyes off him, studying his every move. The careful way he handled the equipment, the familiarity in the motion of his hands. She was seeing something familiar, something she couldn't quite place. The scanner beeped as Ronnie expertly navigated its interface. Even Rick, against his will, was impressed. In moments, Ronnie had located the error code. "There it is," he said softly. "Camshaft phase sensor. Intermittent signal." Theresa blinked. "How did you know that?" Ronnie didn't answer her. He was focused, his hands steady as he cleared the codes, adjusted the values, and recalibrated the system. He moved with a practiced grace, as if he'd done this 1,000 times before. Every action was precise, the machine an extension of his own body. Nate had stopped laughing and was watching the process. Rob was still recording, but his snickering had been replaced by a curious silence. "Done," Ronnie said, unplugging the scanner. "You can start it now." Rick slid into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine roared to life, smooth, clean, perfect. He tapped the gas pedal, and the car responded instantly. The entire garage was silent. Theresa got in and took it for a quick spin around the block. When she returned, her eyes were wide with wonder. "It's never run this smoothly," she said. "It feels like a new car." By then, Ronnie was already putting the scanner aside, ready to return it. "It's fixed, ma'am," he said simply. Rick approached him, his arrogance gone. "Where did you learn to do that?" Ronnie paused for a moment. "I've worked on cars my whole life." "But where exactly?" "Here and there," he answered vaguely. "Now, about that sandwich." Theresa stepped forward, something clicking inside her. "What's your full name?" "Ronnie," he said. "Just Ronnie." She hesitated again. "Yes, just Ronnie." Rob was still holding his phone, but now he wasn't sure if he should post the video. What he had intended as a joke had become something profound. Rick pulled some cash from his pocket and held it out to Ronnie. "Here. You earned more than a sandwich." Something. But Ronnie just smiled and shook his head, gently refusing. "That wasn't part of the deal." "Man," Rick said in disbelief, "you just fixed in minutes what we couldn't solve all day." Theresa opened her purse and pulled out a bill. "Please, take this. You saved me today." But Ronnie shook his head again. "I didn't do it for the money. I just wanted to help." Theresa was puzzled. Why? Why would you help people who treated you so poorly? Their eyes met, and in that moment, Theresa saw something deeper, an old pain, silent and heavy as the shadow he seemed to carry. "Because everyone," he replied softly, "deserves a second chance." Then, without another word, He turned and walked away, leaving the entire garage in stunned silence. The 4 people left behind didn't know it yet, but they had just encountered someone truly extraordinary. A few days later, Ronnie found himself near Premium Motors again. He wasn't looking for a job. He knew they wouldn't hire him. But something pulled him back. Maybe it was the memory of feeling useful again, the moment he touched an engine and, for a brief time, felt like himself once more. The garage was busy. Expensive cars lined every service bay, and the air was thick with the sounds of tools, engines, and conversation. From across the street, Ronnie stood behind a tree, watching quietly. Rick was hunched over the engine of a red BMW, clearly stressed. Even from a distance, Ronnie could see the tension in his shoulders and the frustration in his movements. Nate and Rob were circling the car, just as lost. "I can't believe it. It's happening again," Rick muttered loudly, his voice laced with annoyance. "This is the 3rd car this week we can't figure out." A man in an expensive suit approached the BMW. It was Dr. Evans, a well-known lawyer in town and the car's owner. "How is the repair coming along?" he asked politely, though an edge of impatience was clear in his voice. "Almost there, Dr. Evans," Rick said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Just one more adjustment." Dr. Evans's eyes narrowed. "That's what you said yesterday. I need that car, now." Rob edged away and pulled out his phone. "Oh man, I have to get this. Rick's about to blow a gasket. Sick." "Put that away," Nate hissed, but Rob was already recording. From his hidden vantage point, Ronnie was listening. He recognized that sound from the engine, a subtle misfire, a hesitation. It was a simple fix, one he could handle in minutes, but he didn't move. The memory of their laughter, their scorn, still stung. A taxi pulled up, and a woman carrying a small child got out. It was Carmen, Dr. Evans's wife. The boy, Charlie, was listless, whimpering softly. "Is it fixed?" she asked anxiously. "Charlie has a fever. I need to get him to the hospital." The color drained from Dr. Evans's face. He looked at Rick, his expression a mixture of desperation and restraint. "They're still working on it." Rick felt the weight of the situation. "Mrs. Evans, we're almost done. Just a moment." "A moment?" Carmen cried. "You said that 2 days ago." The lawyer's composure finally broke. "My son is sick. I need my car now." Tension filled the garage. Other customers stopped to watch the commotion. Rob continued to record, whispering into his phone. "This is insane. Total chaos at the shop." Nate tried to calm him down. "Dr. Evans, we'll get it right. We just need a little more time." "Time?" Dr. Evans shouted. "My son doesn't have any more time." Carmen clutched her son tightly, her voice trembling. "Ronald, just call an Uber. We can't wait any longer." "Havro. It's impossible to get one right now," he replied, running a hand through his hair in distress. Across the street, Ronnie watched the scene unfold. He heard the child's cry, and something broke inside him. He saw a flash of his own past his daughter, sick and scared, and the terror of not being able to get her to the hospital in time. He couldn't stand it. He crossed the street, one step at a time, knowing he might be chased away again, but also knowing he couldn't ignore a suffering child. "Excuse me," he said, reaching the garage entrance. Rick stopped and froze. "Oh no, not now." "What's he doing here?" Rob whispered, still recording. Dr. Evans gave him a cold, dismissive look. "And who is this? Get lost." "He's nobody," Rick said quickly. "Just a guy who hangs around." But Ronnie was undeterred. He ignored the words and got straight to the point. "May I look at the car?" he asked. "The boy needs to get to the hospital." "You?" Dr. Evans replied with a sneer. "You think you can fix what 3 so-called professionals can't?" "I'd like to try," Ronnie said simply. Carmen looked at him, a plea in her eyes. "Do you know about cars?" "A little," Ronnie answered humbly. Rob couldn't help but laugh. "It's him again. The guy who fixed Mrs. Clark's Mercedes the other day. Thinks he's an expert." "He fixed it?" Dr. Evans asked, raising an eyebrow. Rick flushed, his face turning red. "It was a coincidence. A lucky guess." "As in, lucky?" Ronnie's reply was quiet but sharp. "Wasn't it a faulty camshaft sensor?" Rick fell silent. Deep down, he knew Ronnie was right. After the incident, he had checked the sensor, and that had been the problem. "Let him try," Carmen said desperately, turning to her husband. Please, Ronald, our son needs help. This is ridiculous, Carmen. He's just a what? Carmen cut in sharply. A person willing to help when no one else can? Ronnie approached the BMW and gently placed a hand on the engine. He closed his eyes, listening to its rhythm, feeling its vibrations. To everyone watching, it looked bizarre. But to Ronnie, the car was telling him everything he needed to know. The fuel pump is shot, he said. It's not holding pressure. That's why the engine is misfiring. Rick stared at him. How could you know that just by listening and feeling? Experience, Ronnie answered. Do you have a fuel pressure gauge? Though skeptical, Nate fetched the tool. They hooked it up, and sure enough, the pressure readings were fluctuating wildly, just as Ronnie had said. Impossible, Rob whispered, still holding his phone. He's right again. Now, Dr. Evans was looking at Ronnie differently. Can you fix it? I can, Ronnie replied, but we need a new pump. This one can't be repaired here. Where can we get one? There's a parts store on the corner. It'll be a couple $100. I'll go, Rick offered immediately. How long to install it? Dr. Evans asked. 15 minutes, Ronnie said with confidence. Tears welled in Carmen's eyes as she turned to her husband. Please, Ronald. Dr. Evans said nothing more. He pulled out his wallet and handed Rick the cash. Hurry! Rick ran off. Rob was still recording, but now he seemed confused, as if he couldn't decide if this was entertainment or something far more powerful. Wow, it's like he's the boss of the garage now, he murmured. While they waited, Carmen approached Ronnie. Thank you, she said sincerely. I don't know who you are, but thank you for helping. Ronnie nodded, looking at Charlie, who had stopped crying and was now staring at him. What's his name? Charlie. He's 3. Hollabrood. He's going to be okay, Ronnie said gently, making a funny face that drew a small laugh from the boy, his first smile of the day. Dr. Evans watched silently. There was something odd about Ronnie. The way he spoke, the way he moved. His deep knowledge of cars didn't match his appearance at all. Where did you learn all this? Dr. Evans finally asked. Ronnie paused for a moment. I've spent most of my life working with cars. Simpson. Where exactly? Here and there, he replied, avoiding the details. Rick arrived, out of breath, holding a new part. Here it is. Is this the right one? Ronnie examined it and nodded. Perfect. Let's install it. He moved immediately, each motion careful and precise. In just a few minutes, he had removed the old pump, installed the new one, and reconnected the hoses like a seasoned pro. Done, he said, wiping his hands. You can start it now. Doctor. Evans got in, turned the key, and the engine came to life, smooth and powerful. He revved it, and the car responded perfectly. Incredible, he said softly. Carmen got in with Charlie, holding him tight. Ronald, let's go. We need to get to the hospital. Before following, Dr. Evans turned to Ronnie. How much do I owe you? Nothing, Ronnie replied. I did it for the boy. Nothing? Dr. Evans asked, astonished. You fixed my car and helped my son, and you want nothing? Ronnie looked at the back of the car. Charlie was smiling now, the flush gone from his cheeks. I've already been paid, he replied softly. Dr. Evans handed him a business card. I'm Ronald Evans. If you ever need anything, you call me. Thank you, sir, Ronnie said quietly. Then the lawyer got in the car and sped off towards the hospital. Rob was still recording, in complete disbelief. That was insane. No one is going to believe this really happened. Rick approached Ronnie, looking both stunned and ashamed. How do you do that? Do what? Ronnie asked, already starting to walk away. Just listen to a car and know exactly what's wrong with it. I've been a mechanic for years and I've never seen anything like you. Ronnie didn't answer. He just kept walking away quietly, but Rick wasn't ready to let him go. Wait, he shouted. You can't just walk away. Who are you, really? Ronnie stopped. He looked back for a moment, and in his eyes was a trace of an old sorrow, a glimpse of the man he used to be before life had completely broken him. Then he turned and disappeared into the crowd, leaving Rick alone with 1,000 unanswered questions. Rob was still staring at his phone, watching the video he had just filmed. Rick, we need to find out who that guy really is. Why? Rick asked. Because nobody knows that much about cars by accident. That man has a story, a big one. And he was right. Ronnie's past wasn't just a story. It was a story that could change everything. The video Rob uploaded began to gain traction online. He titled it, "Homeless Man Fixes Cars Better Than Certified Mechanics." In just a few days, it went viral. Hundreds of thousands of views, thousands of comments. Most people thought it was fake, a setup. But a few noticed something different. One user commented, "There's something familiar about him. The way he moves, the way his hands touch the engine. I feel like I've seen that before." Another wrote, "You don't move like that unless you've been doing it for decades. He's not just some drifter. He has a past." Theresa saw the video while scrolling on her phone. It popped up in her feed. She watched it once, then again, and a third time, focusing on every detail. His movements, his voice, the way he worked. Something stirred in her memory. It reminded her of someone, her father. He had passed away when she was only 15, alcohol having taken everything from him, his job, his dignity, his life. But before that, he was a mechanic, a brilliant one, the kind of man who could fix anything. He used to tell her stories about a racing legend from the 90 seconds, a man who could feel the soul of a car just with his hands. "Golden hands," she whispered, almost unconsciously. That was the name her father always repeated with awe, a man called Golden Hands. 6 for 1. The next day, unable to shake the thought, Theresa returned to Premium Motors. She found Rick hunched over another car, looking frustrated. Nate and Rob stood nearby, equally stumped. "Having trouble again?" she asked as she approached. Rick was startled. "Mrs. Clark, you're back. I came to ask about the man who fixed my car." "Do you know who he is?" Rob's face lit up. "Did you see the video? It's hit 500,000 views." "I saw it," she nodded. "But I'm not here for the views. I want to know where a man like that learned to work." Rick shook his head. "Honestly, I don't know. But I can tell you one thing. I've never seen anyone like him. He doesn't just fix cars. It's like he understands them. Like the engine talks to him and he listens." "That's what my father used to say," Theresa replied, a tremor in her voice. "That every engine has its own voice, if you just know how to listen." "Your dad was a mechanic?" Nate asked. "Yes, and he always told me stories about a famous driver from the 90 seconds, a guy who didn't just race, he built and tuned his own cars. He said he was better than most engineers." Rob's eyes widened. "A race car driver who was also a mechanic?" "He had a nickname, something to do with his hands." Theresa tried to remember. Rick's eyes grew wide. "Golden Hands." "Yes, that's it, Golden Hands. You know him?" "My dad was obsessed with old motorsports," Rick said slowly. "He was always talking about a guy named Ronnie Sullivan. They called him Golden Hands. He was a legend in the Pikes Peak Hill climb back in the 90 seconds, an absolute genius. He could win races with cars he built himself." The garage fell silent. "Ronnie Sullivan." Theresa repeated the name softly. "The man who fixed my car. He said his name was Ronnie." "Impossible," Rob whispered. "It can't be. Not him." "Why not?" Theresa asked. "Because Ronnie Sullivan was a millionaire," Rob replied, his eyes wide. "He was famous, had his own team, international sponsors. How does a guy like that end up on the street?" Rick pulled out his phone. "Let me look up some old pictures." As he searched, Theresa's heart began to pound. If her suspicion was right, the truth was even more tragic than she had imagined. "Here," Rick said, showing the screen to the others. "Ronnie Sullivan, Pikes Peak champion, 1995, 97, and 98. Second part. On the phone, a younger man was smiling, standing beside a rally car, holding a trophy high. His hair was darker then, his face clean shaven, but the eyes tired, intelligent, and unmistakable were the same. Theresa leaned closer. "Oh my God, it's him. It's really him." Nate gasped. "But how? How does a racing legend end up like this?" Rick continued to read from the article. "It says here that in 1999, he lost his wife and daughter in a car accident. After that, he just vanished." Theresa's chest tightened, and tears welled in her eyes. "He lost his family," she whispered. "And then he lost everything else," Rob added, reading over his shoulder. "He sold the team, stopped racing, disappeared from public life. That was over 20 years ago." Rick frowned. "So all this time, where has he been?" Theresa looked at the ground. "Living on the streets," she answered, her voice barely audible. Rob was still recording. This is unbelievable. No one is going to believe this is real. Rick walked over to the spot where Ronnie had stood, still trying to process it all. How do you do that? He asked the empty air. He remembered Ronnie's sad eyes, the glimpse of who he used to be before he shattered. We have to find him, Theresa said with determination. Find him? Rob asked. For what? To help him, she replied. To give him another chance. Rick raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Clark, with all due respect, that man has been on the streets for a long time. If he wanted help, he would have asked for it. Don't you understand? She said, her voice trembling. My father lost everything too. He drank. He drifted. I was just a kid. I didn't know what to do. And he died before I ever got the chance to help him. The garage fell silent again. No one spoke. Theresa took a deep breath. I couldn't save my father, but maybe I have a chance to save someone else. Slowly, Rob put his phone away, his voice softer now. You're right. We can't just let this go. We have to find him. But where? Nate asked. He comes by the shop sometimes, but nobody knows where he stays. He sleeps on the street, Rick said. Probably somewhere nearby. Theresa stood tall. Then we'll search now. Do you know where people tend to stay around here? There's a park, 3 blocks from here, Rob suggested, and under the viaduct on Central Avenue. I've seen people there at night. We'll start there, she said firmly. Rick hesitated. Maybe it's better if we just wait for him to come back to the shop. No, Theresa cut in. Every day we wait is another day he suffers. My father waited for help that never came. I'm not going to make that mistake again. Without another word, they all left the shop and headed for the park. It was late afternoon. A few people were sitting on benches, resting in the shade. Others had blankets, shopping carts, and plastic bags filled with their only possessions. Theresa approached an old man sitting alone. Excuse me, sir, she said gently. Do you know a man named Ronnie? Graying hair, maybe in his 50s? The man looked up at her with tired eyes. Yeah, I know him. Why? He's not in any trouble, Theresa said quickly. We just want to help him. Help him? The man repeated, almost laughing. Nobody helps anybody out here. We're all just trying to survive. Please, Theresa said. It's really important. Where can we find him? The man studied her from head to toe, as if deciding whether he could trust her. After a moment, he pointed into the distance. He usually sleeps under the viaduct on Central Avenue. But be careful, Ronnie. He's not like the rest of us. He has a past, and it hurts. What kind of past? Theresa asked. I don't know, the man said. But sometimes at night he drinks and he cries. Talks about a woman. Says he lost his little girl. It's heartbreaking. Theresa felt her chest tighten. The daughter he lost in the accident. The weight of that grief, carried alone for so many years. Thank you, she said softly to the old man, before turning to the others. Let's go to the viaduct. They walked in silence until they reached the overpass. Underneath the massive concrete pillars were makeshift shelters of tarps, plastic, and old fabric. People moved quietly, living in conditions no one should have to endure. The smell of trash and neglect hung in the air, but Theresa didn't stop. She wasn't deterred. Ronnie, she called out. Ronnie, are you here? No one answered. They wove through the encampment, scanning every face. It was Rob who spotted him. Alone in a corner, clutching an empty bottle, staring at an old, creased photograph. There he is, he whispered. Theresa approached slowly. The man sitting there was not the calm mechanic who had revived her Mercedes. He seemed hollowed out, consumed by a sorrow that had been awakened by their recent encounters. Ronnie, she said softly. He lifted his head, and it took him a moment to recognize her. The woman with the Mercedes. That's me, she replied with a small smile. Can I sit down? He gave a slight nod. As Theresa sat beside him, he quickly hid the photograph, but she had already seen it. A little girl, smiling brightly. His daughter. I've been looking for you, Theresa said. Why? Because I found out who you are. Ronnie's body tensed. I'm nobody. No, she responded gently. You're Ronnie Sullivan, golden hands. A heavy silence followed. He closed his eyes, as if hearing his old name reopened a wound that had never truly healed. That was a long time ago, he said weakly. It can be you again. He shook his head. Not anymore. Not after what I lost, after what I did. Tears filled Theresa's eyes. I know what it's like to lose someone you love. I lost my father to alcohol. I was just a kid when he finally gave up. I couldn't save him. Ronnie looked at her, truly looked at her, for the first time. I carry that weight every day, she continued, always wondering if I could have done more, if I had acted sooner. He didn't reply, just listened. I don't want to feel that again, Theresa said. And I won't let another good man be lost if I have a chance to help. Why do you care? He asked, his voice a hoarse whisper. Because when I look at you, I see him. A good man, wounded and broken, but not beyond saving. She glanced back at Rick, Nate, and Rob, who were standing nearby, watching silently. All of you? For me? Yes, Rick said. We want to offer you a way back. A way back? Ronnie laughed bitterly. There's no coming back from where I've been. Ever. There is, Theresa said firmly. Not alone, but with help. You can do this. Slowly, Ronnie pulled the photograph from his pocket. He stared at it with a mixture of agony and love. She was 8, he whispered. Her whole life was ahead of her, and because of me, it all ended. It wasn't your fault, Theresa said gently. It was, he replied, his voice cracking. I was driving. I should have been more careful. Accidents happen, she responded. But punishing yourself for the rest of your life won't change the past. He looked at the photo again, then at Theresa, and in that moment, he saw something faint, but real. A flicker of the man he used to be. The man who never gave up. The man who didn't back down from a fight. What exactly are you offering? He asked. Rick stepped forward. A job, head mechanic, proper salary, a contract. And I'll cover your treatment, Theresa added. Rehab, a place to live, clothes, support. Slug. Ronnie didn't answer right away. He stared at the photograph, his hands trembling. She always said I could fix anything, he murmured. Maybe it's time I fixed myself. And for the first time in years, a glimmer of a smile touched the face of Ronnie Sullivan. A few weeks later, he was sitting alone in the waiting area of a rehabilitation clinic. His fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of something new. Hope. It wasn't just the withdrawal making Ronnie's hands shake, it was being in a medical facility again. The last time he'd been in a hospital was to say goodbye to his wife and daughter. Theresa sat beside him, a magazine open on her lap, though she wasn't reading a single word. She could feel the tension radiating from the man she had put her faith in. Rick was there too, pacing nervously and checking his phone. Mr. Ronnie Sullivan? A nurse called softly from a doorway. Ronnie stood up slowly, his legs still feeling heavy. Theresa instinctively stood to join him, but he stopped her with a quiet shake of his head. I have to do this alone, he said, his voice hoarse but firm. The appointment lasted nearly 2 hours. When Ronnie returned, he looked drained. The psychiatrist had taken him back through the darkest parts of his past. His daughter, the accident, the years he drowned in alcohol. How was it? Theresa asked softly. Painful, he answered, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand, but necessary. As they walked back to the auto shop, a strange scene caught their attention. A crowd was gathering outside Premium Motors. 3 high-end luxury cars were parked out front, and people were talking and pointing. What's going on? Rick asked, quickening his pace. As they got closer, they saw Nate and Rob circling nervously. Near a red Ferrari, a man in a tailored suit, Arthur Sterling, a renowned businessman, was visibly agitated. You don't understand, he yelled. I need this car running now. I have a critical pitch with international investors. If I miss it, I lose a $50 million contract. Mr. Sterling, we're doing everything we can, Nate said, trying to stay calm. We've never encountered a problem like this. Everything? Sterling scoffed. 3 mechanics have looked at this car, and none of you can fix it. And this is supposed to be the best garage in the city? Rob was sweating profusely. Sir, there are a few more things we can try. A few more? Sterling cut him off. You've been at it for 6 hours. My presentation is in 2 hours and the car is still dead. The other customers began to murmur, the shop's reputation hanging by a thread. That's when someone in the crowd pointed at Ronnie. Wait a minute. Isn't that the guy from the video? The one who fixed the cars no one else could? Everyone turned to look. A buzz went through the crowd. Rob's face turned red. He was the one who had uploaded the video. Arthur Sterling scrutinized Ronnie, his eyes narrowed. "Is this your so-called miracle mechanic?" he said sarcastically. "He looks like a drifter." Rick stepped forward. "Mr. Sterling, he really knows his stuff." Sterling let out a sharp laugh. "My car is worth $200,000 and you want me to hand it over to a homeless man?" He finished quietly, the insult hanging in the air. A heavy silence fell. Sterling knew he had gone too far, but his pride kept him from apologizing. "I didn't mean that," he mumbled. "But it's true," Ronnie replied, his voice still calm. "And I don't blame you. You have every right to be skeptical. But if you're willing to listen, the problem is with your direct fuel injection system. One of the injectors is likely clogged from high-octane fuel residue." Sterling was taken aback. "How could you know that? You haven't even looked at it." "I don't need to. I heard the sound when you tried to start it. The engine sputters when the air-fuel mixture is off. That's the sound it makes." Nate whispered to Rick, "He's not wrong. We've done everything but check the injectors." Rick's mind was racing. He knew Ronnie could fix it, but this was a Ferrari, and the client was difficult. Theresa stepped forward. "Mr. Sterling," she said calmly, "may I have a word with you in private?" They moved a few steps away, out of the crowd's earshot. "I'm Theresa Clark. I run Clark Developments," she said, extending a hand. "That man fixed my car when no one else could. Even your best mechanics are stumped." Sterling hesitated. "But look at him. How can I trust him?" "For the same reason I did," she replied peacefully. "Because what you see on the outside isn't always the whole story. And because, at this point, you're running out of time and options." Sterling glanced at his watch. A little over an hour left. Taking a taxi would mean arriving late, haggard, and unprepared. Calling a rideshare was risky with traffic. He took a deep breath. "And if he breaks the engine?" he asked, still doubtful. "I'll be responsible," Theresa said firmly, not flinching. "If anything goes wrong, I will cover the costs." "The damages on a Ferrari could be over $100,000, Sterling warned. "I will pay it," she repeated, resolute. Sterling sighed deeply. "Fine, but if it's not fixed in 30 minutes, it's over." Ronnie approached the Ferrari, as if greeting an old friend. His hands, which had been trembling at the clinic, were now steady, sure, and calm. He popped the hood, glanced at the engine, and went straight to the problem. "I need a special wrench to remove the injectors," he said to Rick. Rick hesitated. "We don't have one here." "I do," a voice said from behind them. They turned to see Frank, the owner of the small garage next door. He was holding a toolbox and smiling. "I heard the commotion and figured something big was happening here," he said. "You need an 8mm hex and a magnetic Phillips." "What?" "Thank you, Frank," Ronnie replied, gratefully accepting the tools. By now, a large crowd had gathered. Cell phones were out. Rob was recording again, but this time, it wasn't for mockery. It was out of respect. Sterling checked his watch, sweating. The clock was ticking. Ronnie worked like a surgeon. He removed the injectors one by one, carefully inspecting each under a light until he found it. One was clogged with tiny debris from the high-octane fuel. "This needs an ultrasonic cleaning," he explained. "But there's no time to take it to a specialist." Sterling panicked. "So what do we do?" "There is a way," Ronnie said, thinking aloud. "It's not perfect, but it will work. I can clean it manually with isopropyl alcohol and a microbrush." "How long?" 15 minutes. Sterling looked at his watch. It was just enough time if everything went perfectly. "Okay, do it," he said. Frank hurried off and returned with the materials, and Ronnie immediately set to work. It was the most delicate job of his life. One wrong move, and the $1,000 injector would be ruined. No one spoke. The entire street was silent. Even the children stopped playing to watch the man with the golden hands. Rick held his breath. Theresa never took her eyes off Ronnie's fingers. She remembered her father's words. Some people are just born for this. Their hands already know. After 12 minutes, Ronnie reinstalled the cleaned injector. "Done," he said, as calm as ever. Sterling rushed into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine ignited with a smooth, deep roar. He tapped the gas pedal, and the response was immediate and perfect. "Incredible," Sterling whispered. "I've never heard it run this well." The crowd erupted in cheers. Applause echoed down the street. Rob kept recording, knowing he was capturing an extraordinary moment. Sterling got out of the car and approached Ronnie. His expression completely changed. "Sir, I apologize. I judged you based on your appearance." "It's nothing," Ronnie said gently. "You were just being cautious. I understand." "I may understand, but it wasn't right." Sterling opened his wallet. "How much do I owe you?" "Nothing," Ronnie replied. "I just wanted to help." "Nothing?" Sterling was stunned. "You just saved me a $50 million deal. You have to accept this." He held out a wad of cash. Ronnie looked at Theresa, who gave him a silent nod. "Thank you," Ronnie said, humbly accepting the money. Sterling got back into his Ferrari, but he rolled down the window before driving off. "If you ever need anything, find me. Arthur Sterling. Everyone in the city knows me." After he left, the crowd began to disperse, but many stayed behind. They weren't leaving. They were waiting. An elderly woman approached shyly. "Excuse me, Mr. Ronnie. My car won't start right. Could you take a look?" Another man followed. "The mechanic said my car was beyond repair, but after seeing what you just did..." In minutes, a line had formed, people wanting help, advice, or just to shake his hand. Rick stared in disbelief. Rob sidled up to him, whispering, "I think we just found the answer to all this shop's problems." Theresa came to stand beside Ronnie, who looked a little overwhelmed. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. "I'm okay," he replied with a small smile. But in his eyes, she saw a rising emotion, not just pride, not just relief, but the feeling of being seen again. "It's been a long time since I felt useful," Ronnie said quietly. "You were always valuable," Theresa responded. "You just needed a chance to show it." Ronnie looked at the line of people waiting patiently to speak with him, then at Rick, Nate, and Rob, who were looking at him with pride. For the first time in over 20 years, he felt like he belonged. "I think," he said to Rick, "I'm ready to accept that job offer." Rick smiled warmly. "The head mechanic position is still open." And there, outside of Premium Motors, surrounded by people who had finally seen his true worth, Ronnie Sullivan began to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was hope for him after all. The months passed. The incident with the Ferrari became a local legend. But while Ronnie's life was changing, it wasn't the easy transformation most imagined. Rehab was harder than any broken engine. There were nights he woke up drenched in sweat, calling out for his wife and daughter. The wounds of the past were still raw. Theresa rented him a small apartment near the shop, but after so many years on the streets, sleeping in a bed felt unnatural. He often found himself sitting on the balcony, staring at the stars, fighting the urge for a drink. But at work, he was thriving. Ronnie arrived early every day, solving problems no one else could touch. Word spread beyond the city. Rob's videos went viral, surpassing 1 million views. People traveled from neighboring towns just to see the miracle mechanic. Rick was thrilled. Business had never been better, but something worried him. Even with everything going right, Ronnie still seemed distant. One morning, Rick approached him. Ronnie was bent over a Porsche, his hands moving with fluid perfection, but his eyes were 1,000 miles away. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Rick asked. "Of course," Ronnie replied without looking up. "How are you, really?" Ronnie stopped what he was doing. "Why do you ask?" "Because it's like you're carrying a heavy weight. You move like a machine, but your eyes, they never rest." "I am carrying a weight," he answered softly. "Years of guilt don't just disappear in a few months." "Oh." Before Rick could reply, Nate burst in, out of breath. "Guys, something's happening outside. A man just pulled up in an armored BMW. Says it's urgent." Rick and Ronnie walked out to the parking lot. A black BMW X6 was there, its bulletproof glass intact, but its front end was damaged. The engine was rattling, a deep, ominous sound. A man in a suit, sweating and visibly nervous, got out of the driver's seat. "Dr. Evans!" Rick recognized him immediately. "The one with the little boy?" "Yes," he answered breathless, "and I need your help. Specifically, Mr. Sullivan's." Ronnie stepped forward. "What happened?" "Long story," the lawyer said, wiping his brow. "I've been receiving death threats. I'm defending a family who lost their son in a car accident. The driver was drunk and has connections." Just then, Theresa arrived and overheard the last part. "What kind of threats?" "They tried to run me off the road this morning. Dr. Evans said. I had to push the car hard to get away. Now the engine sounds wrong. Ronnie froze. An accident caused by a drunk driver. The wound was still fresh. It was still bleeding. I need the car fixed before tonight, Dr. Evans continued. I have a meeting with key witnesses. If they agree to testify, we can put this man behind bars. And if you don't make it, Rick asked, the case dies, and a criminal walks free. Ronnie opened the hood and frowned immediately. The engine had sustained severe damage during the chase. This was not a simple fix. How long until the meeting, he asked. 6 hours, 7 p.m. tonight. Rick and Nate exchanged a look. A repair like this would normally take 2 days. Ronnie, Rick whispered, this is impossible. 6 hours isn't enough. Ronnie looked into Dr. Evans's eyes, filled with desperation, and in that moment, he didn't see a lawyer. He saw a father, a broken family. He saw himself. I'll try, Ronnie answered. Try? Dr. Evans repeated, a flicker of hope in his voice. But I can't do it alone, Ronnie added, looking around. We'll need everyone. Rick didn't hesitate. I'm with you. Whatever you need. Count me in, Nate added, rolling up his sleeves. Me too, Rob said, pulling out his phone to record. This is going to be epic. Theresa stepped forward. Just tell me what to do. I need parts, rare ones, immediately. Can you do it? I'm on it, she replied, already dialing her phone as she walked away. The next 6 hours would become the stuff of legend at the shop. Ronnie wasn't just fixing an engine, he was conducting a symphony. Every movement was deliberate, every command clear and precise. Rick, you take the cylinder head. Nate, I need you on the engine block. Deep clean every part, degreaser from top to bottom. Rob, stop recording and hold this damn wrench steady. No one argued, no one hesitated. The entire shop moved as one well-oiled machine under Ronnie's direction. He worked like a surgeon saving a life, his hands dancing across the engine with unparalleled precision. How does he know every move? A customer whispered nearby. 3 decades of it, Rick answered, breathless. Theresa arrived with a box. Complete list, the supplier said. He'd never seen an order so specific and so fast. Perfect, Ronnie said without looking up. Thank you. All lit. The clock was ticking. 5 p.m., then 6 p.m. Dr. Evans paced like a man awaiting a verdict. Will it be done? He asked for the 10th time. It will be done, Ronnie said with certainty. But Rick could see the strain. Ronnie's hands were starting to tremble again, his body exhausted after 4 hours of non-stop work. You want me to take over? Rick offered quietly. No, Ronnie replied quickly. This has to be perfect. It matters. Rob stood to the side, now completely in awe. This isn't just a job, he whispered. This is art. 6:30 p.m., 30 minutes left. Ronnie was tightening the last components. A small but critical bolt slipped from his grasp. Damn it, he muttered, quickly scanning the floor. I got it, Nate shouted, retrieving it from under a tool cart. 6:50 p.m., 10 minutes to spare. Ronnie slammed the hood shut, took a deep breath, and turned to Dr. Evans. Start it. Huts. The lawyer rushed into the car, turned the key, and the engine roared to life. Smooth, quiet, perfect. He hit the accelerator, and the response was flawless. Incredible, he whispered. How did you do this in 6 hours? Rick looked at Ronnie, who was now leaning against a workbench, utterly exhausted. It wasn't us, Rick said. It was him. Dr. Evans approached, his eyes full of gratitude. You didn't just fix a car. You may have just helped deliver justice to a family who thought the system had forgotten them. I just did what I could, Ronnie replied weakly. No, Dr. Evans responded. You performed a miracle. Then he got into his BMW and sped off towards his meeting. The shop fell silent. No one spoke, no one moved. Rick let out a breath. 6 hours. We just did a 2-day job. Rob was staring at his phone in disbelief. The Ferrari video just hit 5 million views. Look at the comments. Sember. He held up the screen. The comments were flooding in. This man is a legend. I think that's Ronnie Sullivan, the old racer from the 90 Seconds. Where can we find him? He brings cars back from the dead. Nate read another one aloud. The world forgot about Ronnie Sullivan, but he came back to fix the impossible. Theresa sat beside Ronnie, who had finally collapsed onto a chair. He was staring at his own hands, the hands that had brought an engine, and himself, back to life. "How does it feel?" she asked softly. He looked up. "Tired, but useful. For the first time in a very long time, I feel like I did something that mattered." "You did," she smiled. "You changed something. Not just today. Ever since you walked through our door." Rick came over, his voice firm. "You changed us too. This shop has never been better. Clients trust us because of you." Ronnie gave a small, genuine smile. "You all saved me. You pulled me off the street and gave me a reason to live again." Theresa shook her head, smiling gently. "No, you saved yourself. We just opened the door." Rob approached, putting his phone away. "Ronnie, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "How do you do it? Work like that? So precise, so fast." Ronnie paused, his gaze steady. "Because now, I have a reason. Before, I raced for trophies. Now, I fix cars to help people." "And what's the difference?" Rob asked. "All the difference in the world," Ronnie replied. "When you're working for something bigger than yourself, your hands find a strength you never knew you had." Rick's eyes were moist. "You're an inspiration." "No," Ronnie answered. "I'm just a man who learned it's never too late to start over." And there, in that simple garage, surrounded by people who had become more than colleagues, a family, Ronnie Sullivan realized he had found something he hadn't felt in a very long time. He belonged. What Ronnie didn't know was that across town, Dr. Evans's meeting was a success. The witnesses agreed to testify, the case moved forward, and the businessman responsible for the accident was convicted. But the story didn't end there. During the trial, Dr. Evans told the story of how a mechanic had fixed his car in 6 hours, allowing him to make it on time. The story spread, first through the legal community, then to reporters, and eventually to social media. People started connecting the dots. Rob's viral videos, the undeniable skill, the eyes that hadn't changed. It was an ordinary afternoon at Premium Motors. Rick was busy with a pickup truck when he heard the squeal of a van's brakes outside. Then another, and another. "Ronnie," he yelled, "I think something's happening." Ronnie lifted his head from under a hood just in time to see a line of news vans screeching to a halt in front of the shop. Reporters poured out, armed with cameras, microphones, and a sense of urgency. A cold knot formed in his stomach. What do they want?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Rob ran in, holding his phone. "It's all out. They know who you are." He showed the screen to Ronnie, breaking. Ronnie Golden Hands, Sullivan, American racing legend, found working as a mechanic in Los Angeles. Beside it was an old photo of him holding a trophy, next to a screenshot from Rob's video of him fixing the Ferrari. Ronnie's heart hammered against his ribs. "How did this happen?" he asked, his voice trembling. After Dr. Evans's testimony, someone connected the dots, then found the videos. "Your name, your story, it's gone global." The reporters were already shouting as they approached. "Mr. Sullivan, is it true you're the racing champion who disappeared after 1,999? Is it true you were homeless for over a decade? What happened after the tragedy with your family?" Each question felt like a bullet. Ronnie stumbled back, pressing against the wall of the shop. Theresa immediately stepped in front of him. "That's enough," she shouted. "This is a place of business, not a circus." "We have a right to ask questions," a reporter shot back. "And he has a right to his privacy," Theresa returned. Rick stood beside her. "He's working. If you want an interview, make an appointment. But right now, you're trespassing." They kept pushing forward. "Mr. Sullivan, the public wants to hear from you. You were a hero." Ronnie answered bitterly. "Not anymore." Nate quickly slammed the garage door shut, but it was too late. A crowd was gathering outside. Clients, gawkers, old fans. Inside, the tension was thick. Rick peeked through the window. "This is going to get out of control." Rob was staring at his phone. "The Ferrari video just hit 10 million views. Look at the comments." He held up the screen. The messages were pouring in. "Ronnie Sullivan was my hero when I was a kid. This story gives me so much hope. From the streets to saving lives. What a man. A champion who never stopped helping people. I'm in tears." Hands up. To lose his whole family and still find the strength to start over. That's real heroism. Inside the garage, Ronnie sat on a chair, his head in his hands. The weight of the past, the present, and his sudden re-emergence into the spotlight crashed down on him like a tidal wave. Theresa approached him quietly. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Like I just got hit by a truck," he replied with a weak, bitter laugh. "It's been so long. I thought the world had forgotten me." They didn't forget you," Theresa responded. "And now they know you didn't give up, that you found a new way to be a hero." "A hero?" Ronnie said sharply, his voice full of pain. "Theresa, I'm just an old drunk who ruined everything because of my own mistakes." "No," Theresa said softly. "You're a man who turned his pain into purpose, who uses his gift to help others." Outside, the crowd was growing. An old man yelled through the gate, his voice trembling. "Ronnie, you saved me back in '96 at the Baja 1000. I crashed, and you stopped your race to pull me from the wreckage." Ronnie froze, stunned. Another voice followed. "My son was your biggest fan. He passed away last year, but it was his dream to meet you." And then another, and another. "Come back to racing, Ronnie. America needs you." Rick peeked through the half-closed gate. It wasn't just reporters out there anymore. Whole families had gathered. Fans, admirers, people who had once chanted his name and were now here just to say thank you. "Ronnie," Rick said softly, "you should see this." Hesitantly, Ronnie approached the window. What he saw made his chest ache. Hundreds of people were standing there, holding handmade signs. "Thank you for not giving up. You inspire us, champion. Stay strong." A woman was holding an old photograph of Ronnie celebrating a victory, and beside her, her young son was staring in awe. "Why are they here?" Ronnie asked, bewildered. "Because you gave them hope," Theresa answered. "You're not just a driver who vanished. You're living proof that it's never too late to start over." Rob was still scrolling through his phone, reading comments aloud. "My father is an alcoholic. After hearing about Ronnie, he checked himself into rehab. He's been sober for 3 months now. I lost my job and almost gave up. Golden Hands reminds me why I have to keep fighting." And tears welled in Ronnie's eyes. "You've helped people you've never even met," Theresa said, taking his hand. Just then, someone outside started chanting an old jingle used on TV whenever he won a race. One voice became two, then a chorus. In moments, the entire crowd was singing in unison. Ronnie covered his face, overcome with emotion. "They didn't forget me," he whispered. "No," Rick said, smiling through his own tears. "They remembered the champion, but now they've met the man." And Nate came over, breathless. "There's a reporter here. He's not like the others. He says he doesn't want a tabloid story. He wants to write from the heart." Theresa raised an eyebrow. "What did he say exactly?" "He said he lost someone to alcohol too. He wants to write about hope, not headlines." Ronnie wiped his eyes. "What story?" "The real one," Nate replied. "The story of how a champion became an even better man." Ronnie looked outside again, at the signs, the families, the faces, and he heard in his memory the voice of his daughter. "Daddy, you always help people." He stood up slowly. "All right," he said, "but I'm telling it in my own words." Rick opened the gate. The crowd fell silent as Ronnie stepped out into the daylight. He walked slowly to the center, and the people looked at him, not as a legend, but as a man who had fallen and risen again. "My friends," Ronnie began, his voice steadier than he expected. "Thank you. I didn't think anyone would remember me." "So, we never forgot you," someone shouted. "You're our champion," yelled another. He smiled, a true smile in public for the first time in over 20 years. "I'm not the racer you used to watch. I'm just a mechanic now. A man trying to use what's left of his life to do some good." "And you have," a woman cried out. "My husband saw your story, and he started to believe in himself again." Ronnie looked at the cameras, the families, the strangers who felt like old friends, and he knew this wasn't just a comeback, it was a rebirth. "If my story," he said, his voice firm, "can help even one person not to give up, then maybe everything I went through wasn't for nothing." And in that moment, Ronnie Sullivan wasn't just Golden Hands, the champion of the past. He was Ronnie, the man who had turned loss into purpose. The mechanic who didn't just fix engines, but helped people rebuild their lives. The applause was deafening, And for the first time in over 20 years, Ronnie Sullivan felt whole. 1 year later, on a quiet, golden morning, Ronnie stood before a building that seemed to have been pulled from a dream he thought he'd never deserved. A bronze plaque on the door gleamed in the sun. The Ronnie Sullivan Center for Rehabilitation and Vocational Training. Hands that transform. It wasn't just a center, it was a living symbol of redemption. The complex was 3 stories tall. The first floor, a free auto shop for low-income families. The second, a comprehensive treatment center for those suffering from addiction. The third, a technical school where underprivileged youth could learn a trade, rebuilding their futures. Theresa approached, holding a bouquet of white flowers, the same kind Ronnie sometimes placed on his daughter's grave. "How does it feel?" she asked softly. "It feels like she's here," Ronnie replied, placing a hand over his heart, looking down on everything we've built. It was the day of the official inauguration. Hundreds of people had gathered out front, former homeless individuals who now had jobs, families whose cars had been repaired for free, young people who had found a career path, and people who had survived addiction because of the center's programs. Rick arrived, dressed in a uniform with the center's logo embroidered on it. "Ronnie, everything is ready inside. The first batch of students wants to meet you." "How many are we starting with?" Ronnie asked. 50, Rick said with a proud smile. "Ages 16 to 20, some from the streets, others who've never had a real chance before." Nate and Rob arrived. Rob was now in charge of the center's social media and storytelling, documenting every transformation. Nate was heading the free auto shop, leading a team of volunteer mechanics. "The numbers are incredible," Rob beamed. "In just 1 year, we've helped over 1,000 families with car repairs, trained 24 students, and supported over 300 people in rehab." "And that TV segment about you," Nate added, "brought in donations from all over the country. People are asking how to open centers in other cities." Ronnie smiled, not the guarded smile of a man trying to heal, but the peaceful smile of someone who had found meaning in every scar. A small voice shouted, "Uncle Ronnie!" Charlie, now bigger, ran up and hugged him. "Charlie, look at you!" Ronnie lifted the boy with ease. "How's school?" "It's great, and Dad says when I grow up I can work here with you." Dr. Evans and Carmen approached, both beaming. "Ronnie," Dr. Evans said, his voice thick with emotion, "we can never repay you. The day you fixed our car, you didn't just save a trip to the hospital, you restored our faith in humanity." "Hi. We're volunteering here every week," Carmen added. "You don't owe me anything," Ronnie said, putting Charlie down. "You helped me just as much as I helped you." A sleek car pulled up to the front of the center. Arthur Sterling, the owner of the Ferrari, got out. But today, he wasn't alone. "I brought some friends," he announced warmly. Behind him, a group of business leaders smiled, eager to be a part of it. A woman stepped forward. "I'm Anna Paula, from Millennium Construction. We'd like to donate the materials for the center's expansion." Another followed. "I represent a network of dealerships. We'll be providing discounted parts for the garage." Ronnie was speechless, overwhelmed with gratitude. "This is too much," he managed. Sterling shook his head. "No, it's exactly what you deserve. When you fixed my Ferrari, you didn't just save my car, you realigned my priorities." The ceremony began. The mayor was there, city council members, reporters, community leaders, but most importantly, the people whose lives had been changed by the second chance given to one man. As the event was nearing its end, a new group arrived. Older men with gray hair, some with canes, some with limps from long racing careers. They entered with wide eyes, like ghosts returning to a familiar dream. "Golden hands!" one of them shouted. It was Mario, Ronnie's old chief mechanic, older now but with the same fire in his eyes. "We've been looking for you for years, man." When we heard the news, Ronnie embraced him tightly. "Mario, you're here." "I'm here," Mario laughed. "But you, look at what you've built." More familiar faces gathered around old teammates, rival drivers, pit crew members, and journalists who had once chronicled his victories. One approached, his voice choked with emotion. "Ronnie," he said, "you used to be the fastest man on the track, but now..." He looked around at the young students, the recovering patients, the mechanics' teaching skills once taught to them. "Now you're doing so much more." Applause rippled through the crowd, and for the first time in over 20 years, Ronnie Sullivan didn't just feel proud of himself, he felt complete. He stood before the building that was once a distant dream, a golden plaque shining like a beacon of second chances. Ronnie Sullivan Center for Rehabilitation and Social Transformation, hands that change lives. The mayor stepped up to the podium. "My friends," he announced, "we are here today not just to open a new building. We are here to celebrate something far more powerful, the proof that it is never too late to rebuild a life, and in doing so, rebuild the lives of others." The applause was thunderous. Rob captured every moment, comments already flooding in from the live stream, from champion to healer. The world needs more stories like this. This man didn't just fix engines, he resurrected hope. Then the mayor spoke again. "And now, please welcome the man behind it all, Mr. Ronnie Sullivan." Ronnie walked to the podium, took a deep breath, and looked out at the crowd. Hundreds of faces, tear-streaked eyes, smiles filled with hope. He gripped the microphone, his chest tight with emotion, and for the first time in his life, not as a racer, not as a fallen man, not as a simple mechanic, but as a healer of people, he began to speak. "A few years ago," Ronnie began, his voice steady but full of emotion, "I was living under a bridge, drowning myself in grief and alcohol. I was convinced my life was over." The crowd fell completely silent. "But some incredible people," he continued, "helped me remember something I had forgotten. That hitting rock bottom isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of a new one. A stronger, wiser, and more meaningful one." He looked at Theresa, who was crying silently, "A woman who taught me that helping others is the most powerful way to heal your own pain." He turned to Rick, Nate, and Rob. "And 3 young men who gave me a chance when I had nothing to offer, not because I deserved it, but because they believed in something better." Finally, he faced the entire crowd. "And you, all of you, proved something powerful, that a person's worth isn't measured by what they have lost, but by what they choose to build in its place." End of. The applause started, soft at first, then growing to a roar. When it quieted again, Ronnie pulled a worn, creased photograph from his pocket. "This place," he said, "isn't mine. It belongs to all of us. To every young person who wants to learn, to every family in need, to everyone who believes in a second chance." He opened the photograph, revealing his daughter's smiling face. "And most of all, it belongs to her," he whispered. "Anne Beatrice, 8 years old. The little girl who taught me that life's greatest victory isn't found in a trophy. It's found in helping your fellow man." There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. "So today," he finished, "I'm not just opening a center, I'm making a promise. As long as I have breath in my body, no one in need will ever be forgotten." The applause lasted for minutes. People were crying, cheering, clapping until their palms were red. Rob filmed it all, knowing it would inspire the world. After the ceremony, guests toured the new center. In the community garage, families brought in broken down cars and left with them running again, for free. In the technical school, young people were learning not just a skill, but dignity. In the rehab facility, people were fighting their demons alongside others who had walked the same road and survived. From the second-floor balcony, Ronnie watched it all. Theresa came to stand beside him. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with tears. "You made the impossible real." "We did it," he corrected. "This never would have happened without you. Without Rick, Nate, Rob, everyone who didn't give up on me." "And Annie?" Theresa asked, looking at the photo in his hand. "What do you think she'd say if she could see this?" Ronnie smiled softly. "She'd say, 'I knew you could fix anything, Daddy. Even yourself.'" He nodded. "Even myself." As the sun set on the Ronnie Sullivan Center, the building was alive with hope. Former homeless men working as mechanics, rebuilding engines with pride. Young people learning a trade they thought was beyond their reach. Former addicts fighting for another day, sober. That night, Rob uploaded a new video to their channel, "From the Streets to a Social Revolution, The Journey of Ronnie Sullivan." Within hours, it went viral, millions of views, thousands of comments from around the globe. Rick became the technical director of the center. Nate ran the community garage. Rob became the storyteller of transformation, capturing the lives being changed one by one. And Theresa launched a foundation to expand the model across the country. Within 5 years, Centers based on Ronnie's dream had sprung up in 10 states. And Ronnie? He found peace. Every morning he arrived early, put on his overalls, and worked alongside the very people he had once shared the darkness of the streets with. Every evening, before he left, he visited a quiet memorial on the 3rd floor. There, under a picture of his daughter, he would whisper, "Another day, Annie. Another life changed." And as the city lights twinkled and he walked out into the night, he walked not as a broken man, but as a man who had rebuilt everything that was once shattered. Because Ronnie Sullivan had learned life's most important truth: no matter how far you fall, there is always a chance to start again. And when you rise, not for yourself but for others, you find something more powerful than victory. You find purpose, you find peace, and you realize your life has become a masterpiece. The man once denied a meal for his offer to fix a car had become living proof that the right hands, when guided by the right heart, can fix more than just machines. They can fix lives, they can fix dreams, they can help fix the world, one person, one second chance at a time.